Now, this entire time, by default, and almost any time they can, pass-through is on, which means you have the headset on, but you can see with the cameras right through to everything around you. And I think this is where Apple really wants to normalize the term spatial computing, because it feels like augmented reality. It feels like you're always able to see the space around you. But technically, it's not actually AR because you are still looking at a reconstructed version through a camera feed of the world around you instead of the actual world around you. But maybe it's all just semantics. I will say this is the best pass-through of any VR headset I have ever used, and it's not even that close. Now, again, it's so hard to get this through a YouTube video. It does have screen recording built in, so I'm gonna try to use that, but imagine putting a headset on and not really feeling like you're looking at a screen with the real world. Because of the pixel density, because of the 90 hertz refresh rate, and because of the impressive dynamic range of the cameras and the correctly adjusting shutter speed, you just almost don't, you almost just feel like you're looking at the real world, not through a headset. Also, the pass-through is so close to real time that I could legitimately interact with all kinds of things. I could catch items flying at me. I even tried playing ping pong. It was easy, no hesitation. So officially, the R1 chip is doing all the processing of all this stuff and adjusting the shutter speed for different lighting conditions and always keeping pass-through latency under 12 milliseconds, which is the lowest in the industry. But it's really combining that with how close to reality the colors and brightness and everything are that keeps it feeling kind of real. Basically, the only noticeable restriction is super close-up items and objects can get a bit blurry. And then you can't quite make out like really small or fine text. So you can't like read an email or tiny text on your phone in your hand, but you can absolutely text people or read your notifications while keeping the headset on. If you've tried other VR headsets, you know how impressive that is. It's really good with the tech that exists now for VR headsets. But you can definitely still take the headset off and be like, oh, it's way brighter in here than I thought it was. Either way, that's all pass-through, but if you ever want to fully immerse yourself, I mean, it is a VR headset after all you got to do is rotate this digital crown clockwise, just keep turning it, and it will slowly dial your environment more and more into your field of view until you dial it all the way up to fully surrounding you. So all of the windows you might have had open will still stay stuck where they were, but everything you're doing is just on the moon now. So yeah, there's a couple environments Apple has built in here, most of them relaxing scenic locations like in California somewhere, or one really nice one is Mount Hood with a little bit of rain falling. They're not quite photorealistic, but they're just short of photorealistic. Like they're the most realistic digital environments that I've seen. So then the last two big quirks of the UI, Control Center. So the only way to get to Control Center is to look up, and you can't just look up, but you have to physically turn your head up and look at this arrow that appears above you. So once you see that, you select that, and then you get your Control Center for things like, battery life and notifications, focus modes, and screen recording, and pairing to a Mac. But the other big quirk is text input. So you might be wondering, how does text input work with no physical controllers? So there's basically three ways to do this. So let's say you're in Safari and you want to go to mkbhd.com. You really want one of those shiny new Chevron hoodies for the rest of winter. Great. How do you do it? So the first way is to literally hunt and peck, poking the keys on the keyboard that appears in the air in front of you. So this one is tough because it literally only reacts to your pointer finger on each hand. So you actually can't type fast like with home row or anything like that. Not great. The second way, though, I think is actually kind of good. It's at least faster, which is looking at the key you want to interact with and then pinching to select it. So just looking around the keyboard like this and selecting the keys. And you might be surprised how fast you can type like this if you actually know your way around a keyboard pretty well. I actually prefer this to poking the virtual keys because I at least get a little bit of haptic feedback from my own fingers tapping together. But then in Safari, the last way to do it is literally to just look up at the microphone and say the URL out loud, mkbhd.com. And then it just hears you and goes to the site pretty quick if it's a URL that, you can actually say out loud. So what can you actually do with this thing? Like now that we know what it is, it's the M2 chip, a computer on your face with the displays and the lenses inside and all sorts of sensors everywhere.